Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. Once again, we are on the road and we are coming to you from the Grand Hotel in Stockholm, Sweden. We have a great show for you today, and hopefully you were watching the Bryan Kohberger sentencing took place, and I think the word of the day was coward. That's one of them. Next on the docket, we've got a judge who has set to rule on the DNA evidence in the Rex Heuermann case, that pesky DNA. A deadly deception, the trial of James Craig. A man will spend the rest of his life in prison for a little workplace shooting. We have some contestants for Parents of the Year, something we haven't done for a while. We have This Day in Legal History. We have a legal quote that has to do with vengeance, seems kind of appropriate after today's sentencing, and our dumb criminal of the day, Matthew Day, the rooftop rainmaker. Let's talk about it.
Hi, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below and hit that little bell for notifications of when we go live or put up new content. And remember, you can also listen to us on any of your favorite podcasting apps as well. Now, before we get to today's docket, like I said, a quick reminder, we're on the road. We'll be back in the Crime Talk studios next week, but we are here in Sweden. We've been here now, I think, for 7 days. We will come back on Friday. So had a little change of plan, but a day later, but not my fault. Anyway, let's also remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com, where you can sign up for a background subscription service today. When you do, you're going to be able to get all kinds of information on people that you frankly want to know something about. You're going to be able to find out phone numbers, emails. You're going to find out their social media presence. Are they married? Are they divorced? Have they have bankruptcies? Do they own property? Do they have a criminal history? Are they on one of those lists that they are required to be upon by order of the court? Yes, those are the type of things you want to know, particularly if someone is coming into your life, or if you're not sure if you need to get them out of your life. So go to crimetalksearch.com and sign up today. You'd be happy that you did. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. And the big news of the day, obviously, was the sentencing in the case for Bryan Kohberger. Now, I'm not going to go through every little detail. If you want to watch it, it was about, I think, an hour and 45 minutes with a 10-minute break in there. Frankly, that's about an appropriate time period. There was decorum, a little bit of clapping at some point, but the judge didn't shut anybody down, nor the defense object. But the first thing I thought was interesting, the judge did what most judges do at a sentencing like this. There was no pre-sentence investigation report because the defendant waived it. And frankly, it didn't matter because everybody knows he's going to get the sentence of life without the possibility of parole, 4 consecutive life sentences, plus another 10 years on top of that. But the judge did something so that Bryan Kohberger will never profit off of this case, and I commend him for that. So first, what did the court do? The court asked, was there any legal cause why this sentencing should not go forward? And should the sentence not be imposed for all the people who swear up and down that Bryan Kohberger is somehow innocent, that his attorneys beat him into submission, and he didn't do these crimes? Well, guess what? He did not jump up and say, Judge, this matter should not go forward because I am innocent. He didn't say that, ladies and gentlemen. So for all the people that want to deny reality, it's done. It's finished. It's over. Okay? He pled guilty. And today he got sentenced for that. So first, we had people on kind of in the order of the charges. So the victims of the burglary were Bethany Funk. And the victim impact statement was basically, she was, she kind of explained why, she did what she did. Well, guess what? She was sick. She had a toothache. She called her dad, who was a doctor, said, take some, medication, kind of slept it off, so to speak. And she talks about the survivor's guilt. Okay. And you see through that victim impact statement, the effects on a serious crime of violence. She talks about how for the first year she had to sleep with her parents. She still locks the doors and double checks them, checks the rooms every night, and really hasn't had a good night sleep. But she's come to the conclusion that she wants to keep living for her friends. And that's a good thing. The judge commended her for that. Then we got Dylan Markinson and Madison Mogen's stepfather, Scott Laramie, spoke as well. Next, we had Madison Mogen's stepfather, Scott Laramie. Just very heartfelt sentencing statement that he gave. This is a young daughter that he's raised since she was 2, and really his heart was broken. And the grandmother of Madison Mogen also spoke, Kim Cheerley, who's a very good speaker for the circumstances, and she wanted to thank everybody, which I thought was very the way she did about it. It was very, very good. But then she also called out Bryan Kohberger, not by name. Very few times was the name Kohberger ever mentioned at all, but kind of said, hey, you got to watch your back, right? And then Ben Mogen, Madison's father. Now, he sounds like he's had some issues in life. He says he's dealt with addiction and things like that. And I would guess by some of his statements that he's done a little prison time, because he said, you're going to have to look around for the rest of your life, that someone may want to pull his card. That means somebody's going to take him out in prison. It was almost like a call to action in a nice way, so to speak. But I felt so bad for him because he acknowledged that the Laramie family had, basically raised his daughter. He appreciated all that. And it was rather moving. It was very, very emotional. I don't think there was a dry eye in the courtroom. The judge got emotional. The prosecutor got emotional. The only person that didn't get emotional at all was Bryan Kohberger. And then we thought there was going to maybe be some fireworks. You never know, right? Then the Gonsalves stepped up, Steve Gonsalves. He basically said, hey, you know what? We finished what you started. And guess what? You are going to prison for the rest of your life. And basically that that Bryan Kohberger united the community, the police, everybody because of him. And then it started, ladies and gentlemen, where Stephen Gonsalves started calling him out and saying, you know what, Mr. Kohberger, you're stupid. You think you're smarter than everybody else, but you got caught. And you're a joke. And, basically, you're a loser. That's the best way to describe it. I think that was actually what he said. But then Olivia Gonsalves, the older sister, got up and spoke. And she was good. She was good. And as well as Christy Gonsalves. And, we may put a couple of snippets in for this, but basically said, Bryan Kohberger, once again, you're a loser. You had no job. You couldn't get a job. You had no friends. You were pathetic. And you had to go creeping around at night in somebody else's apartment because you couldn't get the emotional affection or touch that you need because you are a loser. It was very impactful. And when she was done, there was clapping in the courtroom. And nobody said, maintain the decorum or anything like that. Frankly, it was appropriate. Then the attorney for the Gonsalves family read a couple of statements, one for Mrs. Gonsalves' mother, for the mother who couldn't read that. But, basically, then we moved on to Xana Kernodle's family. And yes, the aunt got up and was great. And she wanted answers. She's like, hey, listen, I won't judge, but I'd love to know what the heck was going on. Randy Davis, the stepfather of Xana, got up and talked once again how everyone was united. Karen Norton, Xana's mother, same type of situation. Then the prosecutor got up and made a sentencing statement, explained that, we were ready and willing to go. But basically, the defense had said from the beginning that they were going to trial, that their client was factually innocent. And then they came in basically with their hat in hand and said, please, 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 could we have a plea bargain, life without the possibility of parole? It was the defense that went forward with that plea disposition. And understand, ladies and gentlemen, the defense was not going to go forward to the prosecution unless they had authority or permission from their client, Bryan Kohberger, to do that. And then the judge called Kohberger a coward and said, "You're incompetent." And you know that is what had to sting. Just like when Olivia Gonzalez got up there and said, "You're not smart. You're not the genius that you think you are. You're a coward, and you're incompetent, and you're a loser." That had to have stung Bryan Kohberger worse than anything, because he does think that he is smarter than everybody else, and he's just going to sit there. And but the reality of it is he thought he was going to get away with something, and the reality of it, he didn't, because he failed in his quest for this perfect crime. And like I said, so the judge said, "You're incompetent, you're a coward, and incompetent. And he's basically, he's evil, and he doesn't want anybody to, basically, he would like in his world not to have anybody want to talk to Bryan Kohberger ever again." And, you know, he said the most serious, the hardest thing for anybody is having to bury a child. Could not imagine having to do that. That's just not the way it's supposed to work, right? You know, the parents are supposed to go first. But he praised the family for their courage and their resilience and surviving roommates. And he said to have to go through with these crazy theories that people came up with that didn't know anything about it, and literally torture these young ladies, as the judge called them, crazy theories. And he hopes that they obviously shed the label of a victim. And I agree, they should not let this define them. They are more than this. They're survivors, they are fighters, and they are witnesses in a very serious case. And they should be very proud of them going forward. The judge said, "Hey, but we do know, we're certain who did it. We may not actually ever know why." And he says, "Don't ask why, because you can't explain these types of things. And if you go asking why, guess what? You make him relevant." Now, guess what? We'd all like to know why. We'd like to study it. We'd like to know what happened in this particular situation. But he hopes that basically people will not, you know, do a book deal or want to interview him or something along those lines, because there's no rationality to this at all. You know, he understands people are going to study it, but he says, "I hope you do it quietly, and don't make this guy famous." So the judge said, "Guess what, Mr. Kohberger? Your end of your 15 minutes of fame is here. You are going to be perpetually incarcerated for the rest of your life." He cited a trial judge in Idaho. Apparently a judge by the name of Edward Lodge. Apparently he was on the bench for some 50 years, so he probably had seen it all. And he said he always tried to say that he'd like to try to find something good about a particular defendant. Sometimes he said it was tough to do that. He said one time he even said, "Well, the only thing I could come up with was the defendant had, guess what? Some really nice handwriting." That was about it. But the judge says, "You know what? No, I'm not going to say anything good about you, because there's nothing good to say about Bryan Kohberger. He's shown no remorse, no redemption whatsoever, and he forever needs to be removed from society." And then the court went through all of the counts for the actual imposition of sentencing. Count 1, burglary, 10 years, 0 to indeterminate. And what did he do? Imposed a fine of $50,000. And I'll explain in a minute why that's significant. Count 2, Madison Mogan, life, no possibility of parole. $50,000 fine, $5,000 civil restitution. Count 3, Kaylee Gonzalez, life, consecutive to counts 1 and 2, life without the possibility of parole with $50,000 fine, civil penalty, $5,000. Count 4, Xana Kernodle, life without the parole, consecutive to any other count, $50,000 fine, plus $5,000 in civil restitution. Count 5, Ethan Chapin, life without the possibility of parole, $50,000 fine, $5,000 civil judgment. You may say, what's the good of that, Scott? What does that matter? Well, it matters because guess what? If people put money on his books, that money is going to go towards that fine, paying restitution as well. Okay. If he ever profits any money from any book deals or movie, or anything along those lines, guess what? all that money, it's not going to go to him. It's going to go to the state. It's going to go to the families, at least on the $5,000 portion of it. So you have 50, 100, 150, 250 in fines, $250,000 in fine. And maybe he'll get to work and make 8 cents a day or something along those lines. The point is, the judge wanted to make his life miserable so that he doesn't get money on his books. He'll get to keep a little, but most of it will go towards restitution. Like I said, all counts were consecutive. Restitution, they're going to reserve that for 60 days. But usually that will include any costs of prosecution that they may be entitled to for the state to get a bill, at least on the books, they'll never pay. And also, he's ordered to take a DNA sample, and he is referred to or sent to the custody of the Idaho Board of Corrections. The judge did advise him you can appeal, but he said, you may want to talk to your attorneys to do that because that could void your deal. So yes, it is over, ladies and gentlemen. Bryan Kohberger sentenced finally. Yes, I think we would all like to know why. And I kind of like Judge Hippler's thinking. Maybe if we don't know why, because it makes him irrelevant. Because at the end of the day, he is a coward. He is a loser. And now he's a convicted murderer, sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And I'm sure there'll be some desperate person out there that will want to date him or send him money or something along those lines. But the reality of it is, just like the family said and the judge said, he's a loser. He's not smart. He's incompetent. We'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think in the comments. So finally, just saying, this was a perfect demonstration of a victim impact sentencing. And I've been a lot of these where you're not going to say anything because you're going to appeal. But Kohberger didn't say anything. He didn't have the guts to get up and say, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. The words I'm sorry can go a long way. But he didn't even do that. The defense said nothing. I get it. They just want to get in and out. They figure, let everybody sit here and say what an evil person he is. But we're out of here. We got him life. That's what our goal was from the beginning. And all that other stuff about factual innocence. And they were going to proceed to trial. It was just puffery. It was just gamesmanship. And frankly, for all those out there who think he's innocent people don't plead guilty to 4 counts of murder. They don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. Just think about that. Next on the docket, let's talk about Rex Heuermann. So on July 22nd, the state Supreme Court Justice Timothy Mazie announced that he will rule on the admissibility of DNA evidence in the case against Rex Heuermann, the accused Long Island serial killer, on September 3rd. Now, the defense attorneys have until August 15th to file closing briefs, with prosecution submitting their final briefs by August 22nd. Now, Heuermann, a 61-year-old Manhattan architect, has been in custody since his arrest in July of 2023, and he faces multiple counts of first and second degree murder in the deaths of 7 women. These deaths all took place between 1993 and 2010. He has pled not guilty to all of the charges. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what have I told you? You have to understand the defense always tries to get rid of the damning evidence. What's the damning evidence in this particular case of Rex Heuermann? Ooh, that pesky DNA. Guess what? And they're trying to keep it out. I don't know what the judge will rule. I wasn't there for all the motions hearings. I don't think the judge is going to say DNA evidence is so unique that we can't let this in. It's not anymore. This is just a little more advanced technique. So the DNA in question involves some genome sequencing techniques used by Astria Forensics, a California-based company, linking Heuermann to 6 of the murders. The defense argues that the method lacks general acceptance in New York's courts, and defense attorney Michael J. Brown noted that if the evidence is admitted, they could still challenge it during the trial through cross-examination, which of course he could. Anyway, the district attorney has not commented on the DNA specifics, but prosecutors presented evidence that Astra Forensics techniques are gaining traction. Geneticists, including Kelly Harris, an associate professor at the University of Washington, testified in a March hearing of this year that the method is elegant and powerful and widely accepted in the scientific community. The defense has also filed a motion for separate trials for each case, with a decision expected after the DNA ruling. Now, Brown stated that the case is likely to proceed to trial regardless of the DNA decision. Now, I'm predicting that if the DNA comes in, the trials will all be together. If you have a separate trial, then they prosecution will then bring in 404B evidence saying, hey, look at all these other crimes where he's linked as well. And it'll all just be one big trial anyway. So I think that's the way things will come down. I think the unique DNA is coming in. It's just an advancement in the DNA, not something so radical or new that we don't know what we're dealing with anymore. Next, let's talk about a deadly deception. That's right, the trial of James Craig, or should I say Dr. James Craig. So in a packed courtroom in Centennial, Colorado, the trial of James Craig, the dentist accused of poisoning his wife, Angela Craig, unfolded with some shocking revelations of betrayal, meticulous planning, and a chilling cover-up. Now, charged with first-degree murder, Craig faces allegations that he killed his wife, who was 43, a devoted mother of 6, by lacing her protein shake with cyanide and tetrahydrozoline, a decongestant found in eye drops. Now, this all took place in March of 2023. Now, the trial, which began on July 15th at the Arapahoe County District Court, exposed a tangled web of infidelity, financial strain, and a sinister scheme indeed. The prosecution has painted Craig as a calculated killer, using his medical knowledge to administer this lethal poison. Now, Angela first fell ill back in March of 2023 after drinking a protein shake prepared by her husband, and she experienced some dizziness and had some fainting spells. And then over the next 10 days, she was hospitalized multiple times with baffling symptoms. And then on March 15th, Craig's business partner, Ryan Redfern, alerted a nurse to possible poisoning after a package of potassium cyanide arrived at their dental practice, which was called Summerbrook Dental Group. Angela was ultimately pronounced brain dead on March 18th of 2023 at approximately 4:29 p.m., with toxicology reports revealing cyanide levels nearly twice the lethal threshold, which was 5.865 milligrams per liter, just in case you were wondering, and also having the eye drop stuff in her system as well. Anyway, the coroner, Dr. Kelly Lear, ruled her death a homicide caused by acute cyanide toxicity. Now, investigators uncovered some chilling evidence. Internet searches on a computer in the exam room 9, to be specific, at Craig's practice included how many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human and how to make murder look like a heart attack. Don't you Google that every day yourself? Of course you do. No, you don't know. That's why it's relevant. Anyway, the record showed that Craig, using the email jimandwaffles@gmail.com, well, you got to check out those emails associated with people at crimetalksearch.com. I know, shameless plug, but we got to get it in there. Anyway, it showed that he ordered arsenic and cyanide with a package labeled potassium cyanide delivered to his office on March 13th. Surveillance revealed Craig purchasing 19 packages of eye drops containing the tetrahydrozoline on March 8th and 9th, and text messages from Angela's phone searched after her death showed her researching symptoms like dizziness, slow focus, tired, head pressure, and pre-workout supplements made me dizzy, unaware her husband was poisoning her shakes, allegedly. Anyway, then we had testimony from Dr. Mark Simon, an ICU physician, highlighted the 6th day of trial. He described Angela as unresponsive and on a ventilator with intracranial pressure so high he'd never heard of a patient surviving it. Her symptoms aligned with cyanide poisoning, though an antidote provided only fleeting relief. The doctor noted that the tetrahydrozoline in sufficient doses could also be fatal, though he wasn't tasked with testing for it. Now, then we had the doctor's affair with Dr. Karen Kane, a Texas dentist that he met in February of 2023, and that added a little bit of a layer of motive, would you not say? Kane testified that Craig claimed he was nearing a divorce and portrayed himself as a devoted father. Their 4,000 text messages reviewed by police revealed some red flags Kane missed at the time, including a song Craig wrote for her titled Enough, which the court declined to hear. Prosecutors argue Craig saw Angela's death as a path to a new life with Dr. Kane. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from Casey Bohannon, Craig's former cellmate. Now, Bohannon revealed Craig's attempt to fabricate evidence, asking him to plant a fake journal in their home depicting Angela as suicidal. Craig claimed Angela ingested cyanide in a shake to kill herself, but Bohannon, skeptical of the usual method, refused to comply. tearing up a map Craig drew of their home camera layout and alerted police. It's kind of like what we talk about hitmen. People in custody, they got something good. They're going to use it for themselves, ladies and gentlemen, and they're going to do what they can to get out. Yes, jailhouse snitch, but, well, sometimes it's reliability. Anyway, earlier in the trial, several days exposed further deception. On July 17th, lead detective Bobby Olson detailed seizing Craig's phone and the dental practice's computer, uncovering poison-related searches absent from Angela's device. Craig daughter testified that her mother showed no signs of depression, only dizziness and nausea before her death, and revealed Craig's attempt to involve her in creating a deep fake video of Angela requesting the chemicals. Another witness, Nicole Harmon, recalled Angela's request to test her blood sugar on March 9th, noting a protein shake nearby. Dr. Pete Sottle described Craig's lackluster reaction to Angela's brain diagnosis, contrasting with typical spousal grief. That could go either way, but I get it. Anyway, the defense acknowledged Angela's poisoning, but challenged the prosecution's narrative, arguing that the investigation ignored Angela's emotional struggle and relied on speculation, and they portrayed the Craig's marriage as complex but loving, rooted in their Mormon faith, and questioned why key evidence like Angela's laptop wasn't examined. As the trial progressed, though, the evidence, poisoning, purchase, incriminating searches, and Craig's attempts to manipulate witnesses obviously is painting a picture of a man desperate to escape his marriage through murder. For Angela Craig, whose life was marked by love for her family and plans for the future, the courtroom is definitely trying to deliver some justice in this particular case. We'll have to see how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, but it seems to be mounting, ladies and gentlemen. Where are all our other people with all the crazy theories? The defense is testing the evidence, being subject to cross-examination. Once again, we'll see how the jury comes out, but I think it's going to be pretty overwhelming, and it's going to be a guilty verdict. Next, the man's going to spend the rest of his life for a little workplace shooting. So on July 22nd, a Brazos County jury sentenced 31-year-old Larry Ballin to life in prison and fined him $10,000 for the 2021 murder of Timothy Smith at the Kent Moore Cabinets Company in Bryan, Texas. The jury had convicted Ballin of first-degree murder on July 18th. And how did this case start? Well, let's go back to April 8th of 2021. Bolin, an employee at the warehouse located about 100 miles northeast of Houston, concealed a handgun in his lunch cooler. After his afternoon break, he shot and killed Timothy Smith without provocation. Bolin then fired at least 20 more shots, injuring Walter Vega, Juan Ordonez, Isadora Leal, and Juan Uribe. And when Nathan Whited attempted to intervene, Bolin shot him multiple times, obviously sending him to the hospital. Bolin then fled to his home in Lola, Texas, approximately 30 miles from Bryan. And during an attempt to apprehend him, Bolin shot at the police trooper, Juan Tovar, in the left eye, causing permanent blindness. Victim impact statements from the mother of Nathan Whited and Juan Ordonez and the wife of Juan Uribe described the physical and emotional toll on their families. The district attorneys praised the jury's decision, stating it is going to protect the community. Now, Bolin's trial was originally delayed because he was deemed incompetent in 2023, but after being restored, he was found competent. The case proceeded. What can you do, ladies and gentlemen? All right, next, some Parent of the Year contestants. We haven't done one of these for a while, but these two, they rose to the occasion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, step right up to witness the dazzling duo of Norman and Clarice Finnegan, a Florida couple who've thrown their hats in the ring for the coveted Parents of the Year award with a performance that equals part audacious and, well, astonishingly misguided. Hailing from the sunny shores of Palm Coast, Florida, this pair turned a routine Friday night into a masterclass in what not to do at the Smiles Bar, located at the 9 Palm Harbor Village Way, where the drinks are cold, but the parenting decisions, shall we say, are lukewarm. Picture this. It's 10:20 p.m., and the Flagler County Sheriff's Office gets a 911 call that's less about a bar brawl and more about a baby left to chill, quite literally, in a running, unlocked, white Volkswagen Passat. Our star contenders, Clarice, 28, and Norman, 60 allegedly decided that their infant deserved a front row seat to the impromptu date night, parked outside, improperly secured in a car seat with the AC cranked and the keys dangling in the ignition like a neon sign screaming, "We're living our best life inside." Deputies arrived to find the little VIP snoozing peacefully, blissfully unaware of the parenting pageant unfolding nearby. And after debating a dramatic window-smashing rescue, they discovered the car was unlocked. Because who needs security when you've got vibes? Anyway, the infant, thankfully, was in good health and catching Z's like a champ with no injuries to report. Enter Clarice, stage left, saw Shane out of the Smiles bar to claim her car and her crown as the evening's most bewildered leading lady. Handcuffs and questions followed, with Clarice spinning a tale of a quick pit stop to grab cash from Norman for baby necessities at the local CVS. Her reasoning for leaving the tot in the car: Smiles allows smoking, and she didn't want the little ones puffing secondhand smoke. Fair enough, I guess, right? Anyway, she claimed she checked on the baby once, sipped a drink, just a few sips, mind you, and was about to head home when the deputy swooped in like the plot twist in a true crime drama. Norman, meanwhile, took the stage with his own Oscar-worthy narrative. He'd been at Smile since 8:30 p.m., escaping the chaos of a fussy baby and a newbie mom. When Clarissa arrived seeking assistance, he swore she checked on the child twice, though his timeline was a little wobbly as the barstool after last call. A witness, however, threw shade, reporting that Norman peeked at the car once, then hightailed it back to the bar, leaving the infant to enjoy its solo adventure. The bartender, bless their heart, confirmed the couple was indeed enjoying adult beverages, though Clarice had only been there a little bit. A concerned citizen, our unsung hero, noticed the running car and sounded the alarm, earning a gold star in civic duty. The Finnegans, however, earned felony child neglect charges without great bodily harm, thankfully, and a one-way ticket to the Flagler County Detention Facility. Norman posted the $2,500 bond the next morning, while Clarissa was released on her own recognizance. Their arraignment is next Tuesday, as was the cherry on this parenting Sunday. Sheriff Rick Staley, not once to mince word, declared these two will never receive Parents of the Year award with this behavior. Oh, Sheriff, CrimeTalk may get him one in a facetious way, I might add. Oh, but Sheriff, don't count them out just yet, right? They're bold. Its baffling performance has all the makings of a dark horse contender in the Parenting Hall of Fame. Leaving a baby in a running unlocked car while sipping cocktails? That's a move so daring it practically is avant-garde. The Florida Department of Children and Families is now investigating, and a friend of Norman stepped in to care for the little one, who's, let's be honest, deserving a trophy for sleeping through all of this chaos. Will Norm and Clarissa take home the Parent of the Year title, or will they have to settle for a lifetime supply of how to parent manuals? Cast your votes, ladies and gentlemen. Next on the docket, this day in legal history. Roger Sherman, a key drafter of the United States Constitution and signer of the Declaration of Independence, died on July 23, 1793 in New Haven, Connecticut. His contributions to early U.S. legal frameworks included the Connecticut Compromise, which shaped federal legislative structure. July 23rd, 1866, Henry Stanberry was appointed United States Attorney General under President Andrew Johnson, an early post-Civil War legal appointment. July 23rd, 1921, former President William Howard Taft took the oath as Chief Justice, marking the only former president to lead the United States Supreme Court. And on this date, in 1952, a federal investigation into corruption within the Federal Housing Administration led to indictments in New York for fraud and bribery, prompting regulatory reforms in housing finance laws. And on July 23rd, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed the American with Disabilities Act, a landmark civil rights legislation with implications for accessibility in courtrooms and prisons and affecting just about everything else. But don't worry, everybody who had to make those accommodations had plenty of money to do it. Next, our legal quote of the day. It's about vengeance. Seems kind of appropriate with the Bryan Kohberger sentencing. It says, vengeance through the legal system is not revenge. It is justice tamed by law, ensuring retribution serves society, not just the wronged. That's deep. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Please meet Matthew Day. He's quite the golden boy. This 30-year-old New York ad executive took making it rain to a whole new level of ick and ew at a swanky St. Petersburg rooftop bar. Now, while most people sip cocktails and vibe at the Landings elevated hangout balcony bar, our pal Matt decided to elevate things in a little less classy way. At 1:30 a.m., he allegedly whipped out his creative director and turned the sidewalk below into his personal pisser, showering unsuspecting passerbys with a liquid nightmare. Talk about a brand misstep. Day's disorderly conduct charge is the least of his worries. Imagine the Yelp review for the Landing right now. Great vibes, solid drinks, but watch out for the unexpected drizzle. Security caught him in the act, and now Matt's facing the music for a rooftop rendition of Golden Shower, the musical. Anyway, here's a tip, buddy. Next time, aim for the restroom, not infamy. Congratulations on winning today's dumb criminal crown. You really pissed off the competition. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk. And remember, the Constitution matters.